We are back in Maya and let's start on our temple. So, the first step is we are going to use a cylinder to make the base of our temple. So, let's go over to our polymodeling shelf where all of our primitive polygons are. And it's important to remember that a primitive polygon is just a fancy word of saying a basic shape. So, primitive polygon, basic shape. You have a couple of different polygons that you can choose from. You have a sphere, a cube, a cylinder, a cone, a torus, a plane, and a disk. For this project, we're mostly going to be using a cylinder. And for most projects, you're going to be only using the sphere, the cube, and the cylinder as well. Some of these other ones can be useful, but I just don't see them used as much. So let's go ahead and select the cylinder. So now we have a cylinder in front of us. We have two ways of creating our bottom step to our base. We can either do it manually. I'm going to hit R on my keyboard for scale, and I'm going to scale this down and grab it in the middle, and I'm going to scale it out, flatten it some more, scale it out. That looks good. So you can either do it that. It is going to be manual where you just kind of squash and stretch and flatten it yourself. Or you can do it the way that I prefer. Let me delete this, bring in a new cylinder. And this just helps it to be a little more precise. So without making any changes quite yet, let's go over to our channel box and take a look at inputs. Inputs are kind of like the history of a polygon. And if you've not made any changes to a polygon quite yet, you have this ability to set its radius, height, and its subdivision right just as you put it down. So in this case, I'm going to set the radius to 10, the height to 1, and the subdivision to 8. So I basically just did the same thing that we did earlier, but I was able to do it just by inputting numbers instead of manually squashing and scaling and squashing and scaling. And this is really useful if you want to just work precisely. Let's talk a little bit about the subdivisions here. You saw me pick 8 subdivisions, but what are subdivisions? Subdivisions are just how many times the polygon is divided or how many faces there are on the polygon. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But if we wanted to, we could come back and make that 3. Now we have 3 subdivisions, 1, 2, 3, and we have this nice triangle. If we did 6, we would have this nice octagon where we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it's not an octagon because I think an octagon has 8 sides, but it looks pretty similar. A stop sign. Um, so this is 6 subdivisions, but for our temple, 8 is going to work well. So let's just go take it back to 8. So now we have the first step of our base here. And if you can see, it's kind of sitting in the middle of the ground plane, as in it's being bisected by the ground plane, which is fine because the ground plane doesn't actually exist. But just because I want to be clean, I'm going to lift it up so it's sitting on top of the ground plane. There we go. And I can't know for sure. There may be a gap. So a nice way of being able to tell is by hitting spacebar and opening up your 4 different views. So your 4 different views are perspective, which is the view we were just in, where you have this ability to look at an object from every angle. You have your top view, which says top right here, which gives you the ability to look down on your polygon. You have the front view, which you can look at the front of your polygon, and you have the side view, which is the side of your polygon. You can enter a view by hovering over it and hitting spacebar. And now we're in the front view. And it makes it easier just to see there's the ground plane, here's our polygon, and we can make sure it's sitting right on the ground plane. There we go. I hit spacebar to exit, and then I'm going to hit spacebar while I'm hovering over perspective to go back into perspective. So now we have our first step and it is sitting on the ground plane. So let's give it a name. It's really important to name our polygons as we're modeling, just to keep track of things. So to name your polygon, I'm going to keep it selected. I'm going to come over to my channel box, and where you see it says P cylinder 1, I'm going to click that once, and I'm going to put in base. So now our polygon here is named base. So I want to be able to make this a maybe 3 steps going up. So 1, 2, 3. Right now we have our first step. Let's give it a second step. You are going to hit Control D. And what that did is that just duplicated our polygon here. And you can't really tell because it actually, when you duplicate inside of Maya, it just puts it on top of the pre-existing polygon. So it's there, it's just stacked on the other one. You can't tell. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the Y arrow, and I'm just going to lift it up. And there it is. There's our duplicated polygon. So let's scale this down. I'm going to hit R on my keyboard, and I'm going to scale down. Let me hit W, just so we're in the move, and I'm going to bring it down. Take a look at that. I'm going to hit R, scale it down a little bit more. W. That looks good. Now I want this to be able to just sit right on top of the step beneath it. And I want to be precise, so I'm going to hit spacebar to exit out of my view, and I'm going to go back to the front view to see. That looks pretty good. That looks like it's sitting right on top of the one beneath it. Okay, let's go back to perspective. Now back in perspective, I'm going to hit Control D again, and that's going to have duplicated this one. And a good way of seeing if your duplicate is sitting inside of the original polygon is by going to this front view and turning on the wireframe. And the wireframe is this button right here. And what that does is it shows you the wireframe of each polygon. So this is the third one I just duplicated. It's highlighted green, and then these are the ones beneath it, the second and the first right here. And you can see when it's sitting inside of another polygon. And it's really helpful with the wireframe, because if I turned off the wireframe, you wouldn't be able to see that. It would just disappear completely. But with the wireframe, we can see the outline of that polygon. So that's really useful. I'm going to pull this out. Let's hit spacebar to get out of front view, spacebar over perspective to get into perspective view, and let's scale this down. R on your keyboard. So I'm going to scale this down to right about there. Now, you don't need to be precise with your scales or your rotates or anything like that. You do have the freedom to just do as much scaling and pushing and rotating as you want. So I'm going to hit W for move. I'm going to sit it right on top of the one beneath it. And I don't want any gaps, so I'm going to exit perspective, go into front, and I'm going to make sure it's sitting right on top. All right, looks good. Let's go back to hit spacebar again, go back into perspective. Awesome. So we have our 3 steps, 1, 2, 3 of our base to our temple. So now this is a really important thing we got to do. So we're going to move on to the columns, which is going to be the next step. But before that, we want to save our progress. But we don't want to overwrite any of that first save that we made. So we're going to increment and save. And increment and save is really useful because that's saving a new version every time. If I was to go up to File and go down to Increment and Save, click that, it's going to have saved a new version. And the new version is going to have the base. And let's take a look at the project folder. And the increment and save that we just did is now going to be temple.0001. If I was to make any changes and increment and save again, go back to our scenes, it would now appear as .002. So this is really useful because then you're not overwriting any of the work that you were doing. You are just saving new versions of your scene by just going to File, Increment, and Save. Okay, so we have our base ready. Next up, we're going to do our columns.